been? Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is Amanda Eloesh. You are joining us in our Mastery Series, Access Your Inalienable Sovereignty in 2021. It is a great honor to have Dr. Valencia Ray joining us. Dr. Valencia Ray, MD, helps busy women to overcome stress and burnout, stop annoying health symptoms without scary drugs, lose weight easier, and experience greater vitality, connection, and confidence. And you can visit her website at valenciaray.com, which I will put into the chat. It's so great to have you. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Amanda. It's a pleasure being here, and thank you to the audience, people who are here today. Yeah.
I'm curious, when I invited you to be on this series, what inspired you to bring the topic that you are bringing today?
It's been a lifetime journey. As I look back in retrospect, I can see it even more clearly. For one thing, the whole ideal of sovereignty has been something I unconsciously was working toward from the time I was a young child in many ways, because, bless my family, it's not that there's anything, wrong with them. I think we choose our families, but I certainly chose one that helped me learn the lesson of sovereignty, because I really didn't have, I felt disempowered because I was constantly pushed into a box that I had to, fight against in some ways, because it just felt uncomfortable. I felt like I couldn't be myself. I couldn't speak my truth. And out of that, of course, there's always, a dark and light to everything. It helped me to be not only stronger, but it actually ended up pushing me on the other side. Instead of being, passive and feeling like I was disempowered, then I went the other way. And the other way drove me into this frenzy of overachievement, to the point where I wasn't taking care of myself. As a young child, I was very social, enjoyed art, music, playing, and I happened to be good at math and science. And then I decided, I'll show them. And a part of me was always curious about health and healing anyway, but I take this big leap, make this big turn that nobody even saw coming, and leaped into medical school. And then I went down that other path of being, overly, and then became stressed out and essentially crashed in terms of my inability to handle my emotions. Like, I, on the outside, never skipped a beat. Like, I never had to take off time, but I really had a early awakening around spirituality and the importance of empowerment and dealing with my shadows. I learned that, like, wow, a good 30 years ago. So I kind of got a head start on a lot of things, but it was very hard. It was very hard. And my spirituality is what really carried me through that time. And ultimately, from that point to this long journey, ended up got married, had children, et cetera, grew up. It was in 2019. At the end of 2019, I had finished a certification in this psychotherapy known as internal family systems therapy, which was something I had unconsciously spiritually downloaded the previous 2 or 3 decades to transform myself. But it was at this graduation, it was 50 of my peers there, and we had 4 minutes to just kind of get up and say your farewell. And I didn't know what I was going to say. I just said a prayer. Okay, give me what I'm supposed to say. I get up in the middle of this circle, and out of my mouth, the first thing that just blurted out was, "I've gotten my sovereignty back." And I was like, a little, honestly, like, surprised. I was like, "Oh, okay." And I just said what I had to say, and I looked at each person in the room in the eye and just sent them love. And I was like, wow. And so I started exploring consciously sovereignty at that point. That was just November 2019. And several yeah, just in time, right? Yeah, so that brings me here today to share. I've deepened in my perspective. I see what's going on in the world right now is that a transformational incubator pushing us toward our sovereignty. And if we don't take that opportunity, it's not gonna be necessarily the best for us per se, but I'm here to help people to understand, like become more conscious about why look at the big picture, like the big, come up to the 10,000 feet view and what's going on with our spiritual evolution, this new age of Aquarius. We've just come into, I'm an Aquarius, just had a birthday, so all of this, thank you, coming together and bringing it grounded too, in terms of pragmatic body health, empowerment, sovereignty in your mind, body, and spirit.
Beautiful. And I know you're quite outside the box thinker. We've been connecting and I send you things. You're like, oh yeah, I saw that a while ago. You sent me stuff. And I'm like, yeah, we are on the same page in a lot of ways. And I'm really excited for you to be sharing, because the medical world has this kind, it's very intimidating. I did my practicum at Marin General Hospital doing guided imagery with people, and the hospital and doctors they kind of hand over our authority in a way, right? And we can kind of lose our sovereignty. I know that a lot of people in the hospital, it is not feeling in their power, not realizing the kinds of healing tools that they have available to them. And I'm really excited for you to be sharing the 3 keys to reclaim body, mind, spirit sovereignty. And I just kind of want to let you flow into it, because I know you're a really great speaker, and I just want to give you space to share what you've prepared for us today.
Okay, great. So I'll break it down into those 3 areas, and let's just start with mind. And what I want to say about mind, I feel that mind is something that is really at the center of a lot of things going on right now as well. It's like being able to claim your ability to think for yourself, or your ability to not have outside forces tell you what to think, tell you what to believe. So it's like there's a battle for the mind going on, and I can just see it, very clearly. So that could be a topic in and of itself. Where I want to bring it down into is when it relates to stress, which is epidemic right now and not getting enough airtime because there's a lot of mental health issues going on right now, is I have this model I use called the 4 key stressors, and mental emotional is one of those 4. And that's the only one I'm really going to focus on today, although they all interconnect. So if we have a lot of anxiety in our mind and we're focused on what we don't want and we're in fear, then that can stir up our biochemistry, our physiology, our neurotransmitters, and ultimately affect things like prediabetes, adrenal issues, inflammation that we're hearing a lot about, and insomnia. And when you're blowing up any of those areas, they can feed back and affect the mind, or the gut gets imbalanced, it can cause anxiety. So they can go back and forth, and people don't realize that. So I'm about root cause medicine now. I used to be an eye surgeon. So when I went to traditional medical school, did internal medicine, did general surgery, did all of this, delivered babies. I decided that I wanted to be this eye surgeon, and I was fortunate enough to do that. And I learned a whole lot about chronic disease, a whole lot of neurology, all of that goes, and neuroscience goes in there, not realizing that I was going to be preparing for now, and still every little thing leads up to now, because I eventually sold my medical practice and retrained in functional medicine. So now I'm a functional medicine physician. Didn't even know what that was myself, and it's been around. Excuse me, but I have like a little back and forth in my throat today.
Yeah.
And so started yesterday, and so this functional medicine piece has been around about 31, 32 years as a specialty that I didn't even know about. And I've been a physician for 36 years. So I was like, wow, what a best kept secret. And then I went and be trained in it. And it's allowing me to help people understand, like I now understand, what stress really is. So if we focus on this mental emotional, which most people think stress is only mental emotional, but again, it involves the body, then what are the 4 areas of the mind that you really need to become aware of? Because stress isn't just happening to you, it's happening through you. And in your sovereignty, when you understand more about this operating system called your mind, you're able to take back the steering wheel and control, that mind better. Take that back. That's what I like to say. So there's 4 key things to be aware of with stress in the mental emotion realm, because it's really subjective. And those things would be novelty, like you're in a new situation, and we are all being thrown into new situations. Some people didn't know how to use Zoom when they first got started, or maybe you had to work something differently in your life. But novelty is really just a new situation. You can look at it with excitement and enthusiasm, or if you're not aware of how to optimally operate your own brain, it can easily be hijacked through fear. And I created an acronym about 2007, 2008 that goes like this: fear is really fictitious evidence affecting reality. And from a neuroscience standpoint, what I mean, and it's literally like this with your brain, our brain is constantly creating autobiographical memory. Yep. Story of who we think we are, story about what's happening, story about what that means. And guess what? Your body follows, the physiology follows. So I like to say, if anything is overwhelming you, like people have different tolerance levels. I have a pretty high tolerance level for the chaos that's going on, because 30 years ago, I started turning around the bus or the train and doing the psychological and emotional work to make emotions my friend. So I'm not constantly running away, repressing, not dealing with, and that's the key to empowerment. But therefore, when I'm thrown into situations, I might be a little nervous, but it goes quickly. And that novelty and how you respond can actually even tie into your sense of self-worth, your own value, your insecurity or your security. All of those things are a factor. But just knowing that, okay, I'm in a new situation and I'm going to envision how I'm going to handle that. And I'm going to look and be excited about it because I'm going to prepare in XYZ way, that can make or break how you navigate in that novelty. So that's one, novelty. Threat. Threat can stimulate the fight, flight, freeze. We heard the fight, flight, freeze, meaning some people might fight, and that tended to be me, okay? Some people might freeze, and some people might run away. And it's good to know your pattern and to pay attention, because it took me a while to realize, hey, I really am in fear because I'm ready to just fight, okay? It's not, fear doesn't necessarily mean I'm running away or I'm a deer in a headlight. Sometimes we get aggressive because we're actually afraid. So like some bullies are really afraid. For example.
All bullies, I think, are really afraid.
I think so too. So just know, get to know yourself, because then it helped me, because in the beginning of the situation we're in right now, that was my go-to. And it took me a couple months to figure it out. And once I did, I could actually relax and make sure I was going into my spiritual heart place and being able to function the way that I'm called to at this time. Because some people are activists, some people are activators, okay, so to speak. And you really need to know where you are. And by having that sense of spiritual connection, the threat felt not so big anymore, it shrunk. And so that was subjective. The next area would be unpredictability. So I think I absolutely know we're being called to be more mentally agile and not so predictable. And as well as I know, Amanda, being an entrepreneur can be unpredictable.
Yeah.
Right? And it can help you, though, when you're doing it consciously, to build resilience, to be able to shine lights on parts of yourself that need to grow up, so to speak, and take maybe more responsibility for what's going on, and etc. So again, not a bad thing, but just realize you are feeding into that story of unpredictability and what's going on in the world. We know it's like, do this, then do that. Nope, change your mind, do this. Okay, so we have all this unpredictability coming at us. That's where we need to own our power. That's where we need to question. That's where we need to be curious. Okay, so just think about that. And then loss of control would be that 4th area. I used to be really controlling. and wanting to know the next step. Everything had to be linear and stepped out. Well, that worked great when I decided to go to medical school because I just had to get a map. And okay, you go to college, you get your degree, you apply to medical school, you take this test, you get in medical school, boom, boom, boom. And I mean, I was able to go boom, just straight in the line. Why did I leave in the first place? Well, I had this vision when I was a little girl that I was supposed to grow up and teach people the secrets of the universe. It was always intimidating to me. It was not something I even wanted to hear. Okay. And it was like, me, I can't do that. So at the end of the day, this dream started coming back. I had gone through that stress turnaround period that was slow, but, made it out. And, at the end of the day, I started having dreams. It was time for me to move on. It was time for me to go to this thing. And it was really hard. I had been working on my control, though, fortunately, or else I never would have been able to make that transition. I was working on it and the dreams wouldn't stop. Synchronicities kept happening. People kept coming up, like even people who are like pharmaceutical reps coming in the office saying, Dr. Ray, I think you're bigger than this. And I had this big ophthalmology practice and they would go, I'm not trying to offend you, but I just see you like you're doing something else. And I would really pause. It's like, what is going on? It felt like I was in a twilight zone. So I finally just said, to God, universe, spirit, whatever your favorite word is, I don't know how this is going to happen, but you're going to have to part the Red Sea because I'm not telling anybody how to do this, that I'm about to do this. Make a long story short, the doctor who bought the practice showed up. It's a little story behind it, but it's funny. And long story short, I had to let go of control. And I'm just going to be honest, it was the hardest thing I did in my life to not only let go, but to make that transition, which took a lot longer than I thought it was going to take. But it was that spirituality, that ability to surrender, that ability to know in my bones, not a blind faith. I had also started cultivating my intuition, which is part of your right brain. It has more connection to your heart. You can hear that still small voice inside. Mm-hmm. That's where that sovereignty really comes from. It's not ego. It's not like, look at me, I got it going on. That rug can be pulled out from you at any moment, any day. Okay. I don't care how much money you have in the bank. You have billions and billions of dollars, and all of a sudden you are resigning, okay, from your role. Who knows what happened? But at the end of the day, that mental part is very rooted to health and how you perceive. Okay. So just start to realize that the mind is very powerful. The science of that is that we are co-creating based on what we think, say, feel, life and death and the power of the tongue. Be careful. All of those things influence what you focus on, and what you focus on, and if you keep focusing on that, that becomes your reality. So turn off the TV or turn off whatever is disempowering you right now until you can pull up higher, certainly, and look more objectively. Otherwise, you can get sucked right in. So that's that mind sovereignty piece.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah, I just tuning in to one of my favorite podcasts called Hidden Brain, and they were talking about how, it's important for us to be aware of what's happening in our world. Absolutely. And it's also really important to not get sucked into the negativity. And there's so much fear mongering going on, and it's so disempowering, and it's, it's not helpful to get lost. It's Hidden Brain. It's called Hidden Brain. And I have to say, I'm not always in agreement with everything that they share, but they do share some really interesting things. And, like we have to really resource ourselves with positive things, positive messages, positive music, listening to you. I'm curious, Valencia, how do you nourish your mind? What are some of the things that you feed your brain with?
Okay, so I'm going to also use this to transition into the body because they're connected. Beautiful. As well. So the way I started, because I grew up in a lot of fear. I grew up in a very fundamentalist background, and the devil was everywhere, so to speak. And I had to work through that. And again, everything serves its purpose. It taught me a lot about the power of what you focus on and how that expands, and negativity. So I had to learn how to control my focus and direct it in positive ways. I had to learn new ways of thinking about the paradigm of the universe. I had to learn, neuroscience was a big part of my path, and just understanding how we are co-creating our lives. So I would read all kinds of books. I mean, books on spirituality of different backgrounds. I would read even like wealth creation books, and the whole affirmations, and I started connecting the dot how that plays with our body, because even back in that stressed out time, I was starting to get a heart murmur. I could hear it myself. I was having chest pain. One night I woke up in the middle of the night and literally thought, I may have been having some type of arrhythmia going on in my heart, but it was crushing. It felt like I was going to die. And that was in the middle of all that stress. And so, and during that time, when I went through that journey too, I really hit an emotional rock bottom. So that made me like really compassionate and understand how people can commit suicide. That's going on right now, out of control, it seems. And so again, it was that whole anchoring and searching for that inner source, not looking out there for validation. That was a journey. Being able to speak my truth and feel secure in who I am. That was a journey. So I would read things that help build those things. And I would say, be careful while you're on that road to know your limitations, how much you can take. But I would say this, life isn't all about puppies and kittens, okay? Life can be hard.
Rhinoceros.
Exactly. So it's this dance between the yin and the yang. I've come to learn. I was out of balance on that yang ego masculine at one point, but then I started out of balance in that kind of yin ego, where I didn't have enough, speaking up, or having my throat cut off, so to speak, in terms of my voice. And so I went through a journey of books and learnings and mostly spiritual downloads. Later on, I went to some other retreats to feed my mind. And, I have some favorite, different books with that. And so that brings us to like this functional medicine piece. That was really another layer of icing on the cake. I realized that genetically, I had certain little gene changes that was lacking in certain nutrients that could affect anxiety, that could affect mood, that could affect gut and inflammation. And when you have that kind of knowledge, which is what my hope is for the future of medicine, is more of a personalized, get to the root cause. Don't just try to take a pill to cover your symptom.
Yes.
Symptoms are your body's cry for help. So it's like putting duct tape on someone screaming for help. Take this and shut up. And it's really not dealing with the root cause, because you're still having underlying organ damage or other problems going on. Potentially it might slow it down, but it's not helping you to get to the root cause. So I've now even understand like certain herbs that can be helpful, because with one of these genes, it might make you smart and help you to focus and etc. But if you get out of balance with that, you can look more ADHD, or if you get like really excited, it's harder to calm down. And there's simple things like simple nutrients, amino acids that can help, etc. And so the balance between food as medicine, the balance between some supplements I need to continuously take because it makes me feel it's good for my biochemistry, and I can't eat enough food, to deal with that. And I don't want to have, a circulation issue. And then some of it is lifestyle. Absolutely. I started meditating 20 years ago when they were first starting out and laughing at meditation in neuroscience. They were making fun of it. Well, I wanted to calm down. I mean, I wanted peace. I wanted real peace, inner peace. Did not know that all of this was literally rewiring and retraining my brain. So now it's I'm unconsciously conscious, you know, or unconsciously unconscious, whatever. No, conscious, unconsciously conscious. I don't even have to think about a lot of things now. It's a new habit.
Yeah.
So that body piece comes through this knowledge that we need to literally empower ourselves. If you can have access to your gene from a nutrition genomics standpoint, that's great. You don't have to have that. And then the functional medicine testing is just light years away. Like I did not even know this stuff existed. And it is what helped me to get on top of my stress. It helped me to solve why I was having, leg cramps and spasming and all of that. It was something as simple for me as magnesium, okay? But needing extra magnesium for reasons that, it showed up on my gene test. So that's the future, I hope, for medicine. And it's this blend of mind, body, getting enough sleep, getting out into nature, learned about energy, grounding, being in my body, which physically transformed my body as well. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I'm glad you're saying all these things because it really, it's so concerning to me. And all of the things that really bring us the greatest health are kind of free, or they're not the pill. We want we want the secret, we want the magic pill, but the secret is like go into nature, get some exercise, meditate, take care, eat healthy food, garbage in, garbage out, right? Good stuff in, your whatever you're building your body out of, you know, put good things in there to make more of you, and just like kind of like all the things that they're not secret, they're common knowledge, but so many of us, because it's not, in a pill or whatever, we don't get the validity of it. We actually have to make a change in our lifestyle. We have to shift
Mhm.
out of some old habits of how we deal with our pain, you know
Absolutely. And speaking of that, I would like to bring up this whole ideal. Well, it takes courage to actually even shift out of that conventional system because uh, for one thing, you have to think outside the box. You have to think outside the mass group think. You have to find somebody who's actually trained in it, which is not the easiest thing to do because it's not tied to your insurance. Most of the time, you have to usually want it enough to pay out of pocket. That's true. But in the long term, you end up saving a lot of money because you're less likely to end up hospitalized or um, having some major trauma. And this whole ideal of looking outside the box, sometimes we're surrounded by people who are naysayers, who aren't supportive, depending on who you're surrounded by. And then a big piece of the body ties to something called the adverse childhood experiences, where there's a gigantic study that went on between the CDC and Kaiser in California in Southern Cal back in 1995 to 1997, and it's been revived now because ultimately it showed that that patient population, which was just to put in perspective, so because I know where our head tends to go because of the way the media frames things, when I say adverse childhood experiences, most people head goes to, oh, well, it must be like poor kids in the inner city or something. When no, that's actually not. The patient population was actually 75% white, college educated, 75%, okay, and they were gainfully employed. That's why they had a Kaiser insurance. And these adverse childhood experiences are simple things like maybe your parent got a divorce, maybe you were called names by a parent who maybe was having a bad day or had a bad habit or whatever it was, but you took it in. And so there's a list of 10 things if you have 4 on that list of 10, you have like a 1,200% increase of suicide.
Mm.
And they're not like things that we would think would be huge. And so now the issue is that we know that between this mind-body connection, that it's connected, and you can see it in the ACEs study, chronic disease of all forms are connected to this issue. And this mind body piece in emotion goes with mind, as far as I'm concerned. They go together. You have right brain, left brain, you have head and heart. And so sovereignty is about being able to own all of that and not shove part of that in the closet and deny it.
Yeah.
So we have this situation right now where, like Dr. Gabor Mate said, that in order to heal our society, we have to heal the emotional wounds within ourselves. And so part of sovereignty and why we see so much anger and one person trying to shut down the voice of another person, but they think their voice should be loud and clear, or that they can vote or do whatever they want, but then you are a bad person because you are thinking differently. We're never going to have the peace. We're never going to have a new earth, a new progressive place that people can express and be themselves if everybody needs to have somebody else agree with us. And why is all this happening? Why do we need to control? Why? It ultimately boils down to these parts of yourself that come from these traumas, these misperceptions. Or let's say you're bombarded with images in the media that may not even be true. A lot of times they are not.
Usually not.
And and they give you a misperception about another group of people. Like all this stuff is going on. And sovereignty, I feel we're being called to do your homework, for one thing, to not just be spoon-fed a narrative, for one thing, to be able to go and look for alternatives to your health if it's not working for you. Don't accept that aging. I'm literally healthier now than I was easily 10 years ago. And to really start to question and find your voice, your way, your values, and be okay with that. You don't have to make somebody else wrong. Just go find your group or your tribe that who can support you. And at the core of all this, I believe, and it was my own journey too, was going inside and dealing with my own parts or shadows. And they're not bad, it's not good or bad, but it's tied literally to how your brain is wired to be lazy, make assumptions, categorize, or we're conditioned to fear our feelings, not deal with our feelings. And then our feelings just, it's like the tail wagging the dog and we can't control it. And so here comes somebody throwing fear at you, a fictitious evidence appearing real, and you're off to the races, okay? Not realizing you're killing yourself. So it's a skill. It's literally a skill set that we have to put our attention on.
Absolutely. I've been doing work on, I've been doing internal work since I was 11 years old. And it's just been recently that, I feel pretty masterful over, I used to be anxious, tend towards anxiety and anxiety attacks. And it's just been over the past couple of years that I've been able to really, have all kinds of crazy shit come my way and just, really be in that trust and faith and, know that I have the capacity to navigate whatever's coming my way. And I'm curious. I know that I know that you're just evidence of, the fact that you're a medical doctor and you're weaving in body, mind, and spirit and emphasis on the spirituality. That, our wholeness is important and our connection with other people is important. And I just completed a really inspiring book called Radical Wholeness, and they talk about one of the most not one of the most intense impacts on our health, and even suicide, and which I know is a really bad problem right now because of what I'm about to mention that we're not talking about, that's impacting people's health. It's impacting their mental health. People are taking their lives because of social isolation.
Yes. Yep.
It's a really big deal, and I'm sad, and I'm concerned that there's no talk about the impacts. This book was written before the pandemic,
Mm,
but I keep hearing from friends, like, just a lot of suicides, a lot of people losing their mental health, and it's just, it's so concerning, and I don't hear really anybody talking about it. How do we deal with it? How do we support people who were already alone and isolated, to resource everyone, because of the, like, the quarantines and the disconnect, and at best, being able to connect on a screen.
exactly. Well, in this little box, I'm just going to carve out and say that's partially what's wrong with this picture. The disease itself, the treatment for the disease should not be worse than the disease itself. So that's a whole conversation.
Yeah.
And there is uh, large numbers, like even larger, like you wouldn't believe that. I haven't been tracking them recently, so I won't throw out any, but more people dying because of the situation than from the disease itself. So these lockdowns, we all know, or what's been established is depression and loneliness and isolation. It contributes to not only chronic disease, but death, in and of itself. So
Mhm.
my experience with this works like this. As I said, I understand why people can kill themselves now because of that um, dramatic situation around all of the stress caught up with me. I had a second trimester miscarriage. My father died. I mean, all this stuff happened like,
Mm.
couple, like a 3-month window, and pushing through, taking surgery, oral exams in the middle of all that. I mean, it's just crazy. So I get the overwhelm piece. But in addition, I had this journey of having this tape in my head as far as I literally had memory that I don't fit in and I don't belong.
Mm.
It was come from a family of 6 children. Now, honestly, that I don't fit in and I don't belong was worse in the family than it was outside the family. I always managed to put that happy face on, and I'm an ambivert. I need my quiet time. I want to be alone at times, but I like being around people too. So I would forge out into the world and make my friends, and actually even push myself into leadership positions. But this voice in my head would not stop, no matter what I did. That I felt I struggled with loneliness. I struggled with isolation feelings. I could be in a room full of people and felt like nobody understood me. Um, just never enough, just never. And that's a psychological piece that a lot of people struggle with. And then when you, of course, physically isolate them, it's not going to help anything, that's for sure. The one thing I would say, well, a couple things. One, I literally had to work through this piece mentally, emotionally around my self-worth. And that leads me into this spiritual sovereignty piece. It saved my life. I'll just put it that way. Everything is built on that. That's my rock, literally. And I had to find my space for spirituality, because some of the things in my organized religion for me just wasn't working. Like, as a woman, I didn't feel like I was a second class citizen, or that God didn't speak to me because I was female. So stuff like that, it had to be worked out. I personally believe, that this divine God, source, force is masculine and feminine energies, yin and yang, mother, father, God, mother, father. Okay, because I'm like a little kid. Where is mommy God? Okay, that was my question.
Yeah.
And being female, it didn't help me to feel like something must be wrong with me, because I'm somehow this afterthought. So I had to work through that. And that gave me a sense of this building sovereignty around I'm good enough because I breathe. Why? Because my source of inspiration, my source of self esteem ultimately got hooked up again to who I am.
Mhm.
I am. And without all the labels, without all the degrees, without the this and without the that, I'm good enough because I'm directly connected to this spiritual source, as we all are. But speaking as that ophthalmologist, I had this metaphor that we have these cataracts of the soul, okay, that get in the way of the light that we already are. We're looking for the light and it's inside. It's like, Dorothy on the Wizard of Oz, looking for something she had on her feet all, she could have left all along. It was on the inside. But she also had to expose that little man behind the curtain, right? And that's what we all have to work on and
What's
stop.
up right now?
Exactly. That's what's up right now, so that we can really find that place and find that self-love and self-acceptance. Self-love is not narcissism. They're two different things. Narcissism has more to do with woundedness and insecurity, whereas self-love and acceptance is just knowing who you are, knowing that divine connection. You're not only human, you're a spiritual being first, having a human experience second. And we get it all twisted up. We think we're only human, spirit isn't real. So you're going to feel isolated because you're cut off from this source of life. So over time, I went out in nature more, which I loved as a little girl anyway, but I got back out into nature. Everywhere I go, I plant a garden. Everywhere I go, there's something Valencia has planted, be it flowers, shrubs, something. And I have, live plants in the house. And I go outside every day, unless it's freezing cold, or I'm just, every now and then I don't, but almost every day I'm out walking, or I'll ride my bike, and I love living by woods, and being able to go for walks through the woods. Yeah. And right now I'm in a situation, the woods aren't as close as they used to be. They used to be in my backyard, but I moved away from the fires. So I'm not so close to the woods right now. However, I have a car, so I can always do that. There's this point, though, that my point is about the spiritual sovereignty is reconnecting with this consciousness, that whatever name you may call it, Christ consciousness, cosmic consciousness, different names. That's where I don't let language get in my way. It's just, you have to find what word works for you. But I'm thinking from a place of one source, that we're all interconnected. So the sovereignty comes from your individuality, your ability to contribute your part to the whole collective, but your individuality within that collective. So you're both and. You realize you're an individual with your unique gifts and talents that you can share with the world. And when you're really in your sovereign self and you know who you are, you feel good about yourself, you're able to forgive yourself and others, have compassion for self and others, which are divine strengths that the ego can't manage. Then we're able to live in this kind of peace where you can do you and I can do me. And we're not trying to tell somebody else what they can post, or what they should post and all that. But you don't want anybody coming over to your place and saying, take that down. I don't like that. What kind of world would we be in? How dystopian would that be? And who gets to decide what it should be like? That's what nobody ever talks about. Who gets to make that decision? Okay.
We know.
No. Well, I tell you, look out, because you may be thinking, well, you're on that side, so it's okay. You don't care about what's going on. But karma has this way of coming back and biting you in the behind. So next thing you know, there's something valuable to you that's being removed. And then all of a sudden it's painful, right?
Exactly.
So we need to be able to understand the perspective. So I see this, somebody just reminded me of something about a cartoon where you have the number 6. Thanks, Toya. Right. You have number 6. And depending on what side of the number you're looking at, it could look like a 6 or a 9.
Exactly.
So if you're on this end or that end, from your perspective, yeah, you may be right, but that doesn't make me wrong.
Everybody's right.
Everybody's right. And that's the way I think we're being called to do, in this time.
Everybody's opinion matters. Everybody's voice matters. I was just sharing, I feel like we all have spiritual contracts, based on, and that's what, we're born into, the family of choice, as you were saying. I believe in that too. And that we have challenges that we chose to give us strength and insight and certain agreements for how we're supposed to show up in the world that are unique to us. And somehow we think that whatever it is that works for us, is supposed to be the cookie cutter paradigm, for everyone. And It's like,
Yes.
just mind your own fucking business. Like, if you could really focus on being true to your soul calling, and how you're supposed to show up in the world in a good way, and let everybody, like, do their thing. Of course, not harming other people, but
Exactly.
to,
Exactly.
to
Exactly.
just, like, who cares what somebody else believes in as far as God, goddess,
Right.
or whatever, or whether somebody believes that they're aliens or not, like, why would you argue about that? Like, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. And this is a perfect segue to say what I was wanting to make sure to mention too. And you said it essentially, which is we're all unique. We're all on our own journey. Like my family, I love my family, and I have to make choices because ultimately, if I don't make the choice to be to surround myself with people who can allow me to speak freely, allow me to be myself, who can be supportive of me and not, sending negativity toward me. That's what really matters for the good of all. So in this time, you can do it gently. You can forgive it. It may be a process. It may be bumpy, okay, but you don't have to torture yourself in a situation where you need somebody else to see you a certain way and they won't change. That's their choice. Let them alone. Go find another group of friends or whatever you need to do. So that's going on a lot. I hear from people where people, because some people may totally think differently than you. It doesn't make them wrong. Some people need different diets. Getting back to the medical piece, just because you're vegan, great, that doesn't mean everybody else needs to be vegan. In fact, some people need animal protein. The source of the food can matter, of course, but the whole point is this age of Aquarius, in a nutshell, I believe, is about freedom. Freedom and integrity is a very, very high value of mine, especially the freedom, like number one. So
Yeah.
it's leaving this victim consciousness area where we are always looking outside of ourselves, and many times people are trying to fix someone else because they're not doing their own work. They don't want to
Clear.
focus on themselves. They just want to project all their crap on somebody else and be really self-righteous and judgmental. But when was the last time you looked in the mirror and compassionately, I hope, okay. So
Mhm.
it's all of these things. And in summary, um, you choose this day because ultimately your choices are going to come back one way or the other.
Oh,
It can either help you elevate and find that love, joy, and peace center, or it can just, wipe you out. So, yeah.
thank you. I just want to share. Thank you, Toya, for all of your comments. She says, Valencia, this needs to be a TED Talk or a podcast. I agree. You should have your own podcast for sure. And then she shared this quote um, from Standing Tall by Mark J. I know my ideal. It manifests because it is good for me, takes no one else's good, is founded in service to others, and represents the source of all good with respect. Beautiful.
That is beautiful.
That's a
Let's keep that.
beautiful.
Let me save my chat and then I can come back
Yeah.
and get it later.
Yeah. I love it. So, Valencia, I know you have a gift for everyone. And I'm going to copy and paste it. If you could just tell in the chat, if you could let everybody know what that is.
Okay, yes. So I have this gift called the Four Key Stressors gift, and it's a 50-minute webinar that goes over in detail all four key stressors. And I have some patient examples of how they presented and what they did and how they recovered. And to start to understand that things like prediabetes is reversible, understanding how to keep your inflammation. We've been hearing a lot about inflammation. Inflammation can even come from, one thing I didn't mention is because of the toxins in our environment. It's easy to pick up heavy metal toxicity. It's easy to pick up mold. It can be from the environment. It can be in food and grains, especially. So we need to be aware of that because the conventional system doesn't even check for those things.
Yeah.
And if your liver gets overwhelmed, then you're more susceptible to inflammation. Should you get, a viral infection, and all of that's important. So I cover these different 4 key stressors in that video, and then there's also a shortened version of an ebook on the 4 key stressors and what they are, what are some of the things you can do to nourish that, and some tools you can use to manage the stress. And then the last one is a 4 key stressor questionnaire that
Wow.
you can download and notice which category you're in, which of those 4 where you have the most responses can give you a lead into what area would be helpful for you to start focusing on first.
Beautiful. And you're so generous with your content. I just must say, every time we connect, you're just so generous with your time, with your presence. I know that you come from the heart, and it seems to be this overflowing, never ending source. So I encourage everyone to pick up what Valencia is putting down and be with her on the journey, because she's got a lot of insights. She's obviously been on the path for quite a while, and she's got a clear mind, clear heart, and a lot of good things to offer our community. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
It'd be
you.
great to have you back. I just decided I'm going to keep this going. My partner's like, no, you can't do it like this. Once a week, just once a week. It won't be 3 days or 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, but we'll do it once a week. And it'd be great to have you back, because I know you're up to good stuff and always bringing in new. So, please come back and join us. And all of you come back tomorrow. We're going to start at noon tomorrow. We're wrapping things up. Dear friend Karani Marie Lamonaco, Loving Through Grief. She is a grief master. And then I'll be wrapping up the series and sharing how we can take our journey into sovereignty a little bit deeper. So I can't wait to see you all tomorrow. Take some time to rest, to integrate, to go over your notes, and come back tomorrow. I can't wait. Again, thank you, Dr. Valencia. Thanks to everyone who's been here live with us. We'll see you tomorrow.
Okay. Bye.